Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
It's the Solidudes. And you're listening to Supes On, a podcast where we discuss the Man of Steel and all forms of media, and we determine if it's soups on or soups off.
And that was John McBride, our expert Superman expert. I am Jeremy Bruner, our amateur Superman expert. And today we'll be discussing the first radio show ever of Superman. It originally aired in the early 40s, but that was only possible
okay, Jeremy,
because,
reel it in.
James Maxwell, though, in the early 1860s.
That's fine. This is not a history podcast.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get this show started. Hey, let's hand it over to John and Jeremy.
All right, welcome everybody. As you heard in the intro there, today in the Fortress of Solidudes, we actually have a third dude joining us.
Hello, Gotham.
And that was Justin Schlenke. He is a historian.
That's right.
We might have misled you a little bit. This is actually not a history podcast.
No, we get that a lot.
This is actually a podcast about Superman. I hope you happen to have listened to the 1940s first couple of episodes of the old radio show recently. Have you, by any chance?
Yes.
That's our target demo.
I grew up on that, so I hope you guys did as well.
All you baby boomers out there.
You had a horrible parents if you grew up listening to radio shows from, 50 years before you were born?
Dad, I really want to watch Transformers. Shut up, kid. It's time to listen to Superman.
This is what my dad did when he was a kid, and it's what you'll do when...
It's a family tradition.
All right, so as I just mentioned, we did listen to the first two episodes, Baby from Krypton and Clark Kent Reporter, of the 1940s Superman radio show.
Yes, they're right. The Adventures of Superman and the Baby from Krypton. This is February 12th, 1940. Clark Kent Reporter, February 14th, 1940. What better way to celebrate Valentine's Day? Come here, sweetie. Let's huddle up by the radio.
Maybe this was before Valentine's Day was so commercialized.
This man, he's so much better than me.
This is back when it meant something, when it was about Superman.
Sweetie, you don't understand. 2 days ago, I heard about this baby who was rocketed from another planet. I need to tune in to find out if he survived.
There's no time for roses and candy.
So why don't we just start off with our drinking game. So if you this is your first time joining us, every week we like to give some drinking games. So that way, if you have not listened or read or watched whatever we're talking about, you can pause it after this segment, go listen to it or watch it, and we're giving you some games to help you get a little buzz while you're enjoying Superman.
For you to join in with us, and what are you drinking, Jeremy?
I am drinking whiskey mixed with Mountain Dew, as I learned earlier this week. Mountain Dew was originally developed as a whiskey mixer, so I thought I'd give it a try.
Yeah, as for mine, I gotta say, not bad.
Pretty dang good, actually.
Not bad.
This podcast brought to you by Mountain Dew.
Please, Mountain Dew sponsor us.
Yes. And Justin, who are you sponsoring over there with your drink?
I am sponsoring this delicious beverage of Dr. Pepper. Let me drink it as it quenches my thirst.
All right, so John, what is your game for us this evening?
My drinking game for this particular episode, or two episodes I guess I should say, is anytime a woman cries or is worried or screams, you take a drink.
That can definitely work.
That definitely happens a lot, especially when she goes blind. Wait, spoilers. Sorry, I didn't skip to this time code if you want to avoid spoilers.
Justin, do you happen to have a drinking game? I know we didn't warn you about that. Do you have something you can think of off the top of your head?
Every time Clark Kent talks to himself.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. Very nice. Nice.
That is a good one.
Clark is kind of a weirdo.
Yeah. Mine is going to be every time anybody is describing what's happening to other people that are there, as if they needed to catch them up for something.
It's just a total normal way of speaking.
Sort of like, like right now, me, John, and Justin are sitting around some microphones, and we are talking into them about Superman.
Yes.
John, I just wanted to let you know that.
Yes, I want to let you know that I'm drinking Mountain Dew and whiskey mixed together.
And Justin, I just wanted to let you know that while John is doing that, he's also rubbing his nipples through his shirt. It's very inappropriate and kind of distressing.
That is definitely very inappropriate, but I also don't believe you because I'm on the console of Krypton. I need more than hard evidence.
Well, why don't we go ahead and just get into it? And I would say you said you were on the Council of Krypton, and they do say Krypton a lot. However, I would like to point out that I think it's Jor-El who several times throughout this, rather than saying Krypton, says Krypton.
Krypton.
And they bang the gavel so many times, and it's like that part really kind of bothered me. Like I get why they were doing that and trying to get the plot going and everything, but he comes in there screaming like they're being sucked into the sun, and like how do you not have like other hard evidence to provide?
Well, really.
What I also like was just I like how much they're just laughing at him.
Yeah.
Like here's your
oh,
planet.
yeah.
Here's your
So
planet's
full of
most
shit.
respected scientist delivering horrible news. Like even if you don't believe him. Even if you think he's a crackpot, to openly laugh at this man who is so respected on your planet, that'd be like Neil deGrasse Tyson going to talk before Congress, and everyone in Congress just cracking up and pointing.
There's no asteroid headed here, silly scientists.
Get out of here, Neil. The thing about on Krypton is that they're full of dumb jerks. I wrote that down in my notes because, for one thing, and now I have a theory about this. They kind of establish in the episodes that everyone on Krypton was like superpowered.
Yeah.
They understood
all
they had
Supermen
powers.
Yeah.
is what they said.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I'm thinking that they had kind of like an ego issue.
Oh, that's true.
That could be it.
And
yeah.
so they left it up to one guy, Jor-El, the guy that they chose, in charge of all scientific research for the entire planet,
Yeah.
and they laugh in his face.
I do have to say though, what a peaceful planet if you really think about it. Because here, this world of Supermen. And like when Jor-El starts talking about space travel, they act like he's crazy. Like why would we want to go anywhere else? Like they had no plans of like dominating the universe with their race of Supermen.
Exactly.
They were content just staying on Krypton.
Yeah. They had no interest whatsoever, and it baffled me.
Yeah.
I totally agree, and I understand that sci-fi at this point in time it really wasn't boiled down to the hard facts, but some things that picked up on my ears was that Krypton is millions of miles away from Earth. Just to put that in everyone's perspective, that's in our solar system. I don't think that's past Jupiter.
To be fair, trillions of miles is also millions of miles.
Yes, that's
Well,
It's
Might
kind of
as
like
well
in I think it was the Action Comics #1. They just said he was faster than a locomotive, but that could be just a little bit faster or nearing the speed of light. So by saying millions, we don't know how many trillions of millions you're talking about.
You could be a wealthy man and say, I have dozens of dollars, and that's technically true.
Yeah.
No, that is a very good point.
But I like to think it's just somewhere between Mars and Jupiter.
And he talks about how Krypton is doomed because there's tidal waves, earthquake, and volcanic activity.
Yeah.
And these are all things that we know are necessary for a vital life.
Well, what he didn't mention, though, was that the planet was very old. As we learned in a previous episode, Krypton died of old age. It was destroyed by old age.
That's right. Planets just get old, and it's their time.
And then they start having volcanic activity, and then they die.
You know what? To be fair, that I will, as a council member of the Krypton, I will gladly accept that answer, rather than be completely just blind to the fact that the sun is gradually pulling my planet closer to itself.
So here I'm going to go
It's
into.
so hot outside. I have no idea why.
I'm just going to say, as far as the baby from Krypton goes, I didn't like it. I really disliked it.
Can I give it a thumbs down?
I would definitely give it a thumbs down on that because I just felt it was, and maybe I'm obviously judging this with 2016 glasses, but it was just so freaking boring.
It was a lot of exposition. It was a lot of that. It's like, here's what's going on. Please pay attention.
Yeah.
We need you to figure this out.
And I understand, to be fair, it's not like everybody in 1940 knew Superman's origin story. Like,
It's pretty high concept for the time, right?
It's basically the story of Moses.
and not so high
Yeah.
concept. People know that.
I mean, yeah. Now that we mentioned, that aspect of it, that is very true.
It's very interesting to me that Jor-El, like, he's working, like, at the last second at the 11th hour on, like, a rocket ship. Like,
Yeah.
he knew about this?
Yeah,
What the fuck?
and also, and we mentioned the blind thing earlier. So, like, they had Laura go blind, and that was their reasoning for Jor-El to explain what was happening for it being radio.
Which I actually thought that was a pretty clever radio trick. Like,
I appreciated that,
because
yeah.
why would Laura have to explain or just have to? She sees the rocket ship.
Right.
She could just say bye, Kal-El,
And they did mention Kal-El. They did say Kal-El in this, so
I love how he doesn't know his name, but he can speak English just fine.
perfectly.
It's sort of implied that the rocket ship kind of
Taught him.
teaches him, which is
But that's
just
getting
straight through.
That's kind of getting into the second part. So are y'all
Oh,
have any more comments about Baby from Krypton, or do y'all want to move
I
on?
have so many comments about
Get
Baby
after
from
it, man.
Krypton.
Go for it, man.
Okay, so yes, going back to kind of what you were saying, they want to transport the entire population to Earth, and to the console, it's just outrageous.
Right.
And that also pulled me out of it. It's like, well, you guys, Kal-El is building this spaceship in like his garage. Like, I'm sure as a society, you guys can pull it together and everything. But no, I mean it's unanimously. There isn't like one other.
Everyone's
and he's
laughing.
The only scientist.
There's
No,
only
I don't
one
think
guy.
he was the only scientist. I think they just said he was the most renowned.
The only one with like a protractor or something.
Yeah, like the only one who understands what's happening.
Yeah.
I like to think there was some like a lot of other people that thought that, but they were just crackpots. Like a lot of just everyday people. They were just like people out on the street with sign, the end is near, and
The end
Jor-El
is
saw
nigh.
that and was like, I wonder if they're correct. Let me go back to my lab and measure.
Now, as ridiculous as this is going to sound, I am going to compare this to the Man of Steel recent release of how they portrayed Krypton being exploded. That place was on fire.
Yeah.
They were absolutely like, no, this will never happen. to
Yeah.
our
I
proud
think it's
people."
necessary for the origin story of Superman for people on Krypton to be kind of dumbasses. You know what I
But
mean?
I don't think it's necessary. Everyone could realize that this is happening, but they figure it out too late. That also works.
Yeah.
You could have them not come from a race of dipshits.
Yeah, it's like if you were from Krypton, you're kind of dumb. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised Kal-El himself is so smart. I think if he has Krypton blood in him, he should be kind of a doofus.
Like in most Superman stuff, the only people that truly believed it was going to happen are Jor-El and Zod. They're like the only ones that normally. In some of them, Zod's just stuck in the Phantom Zone and he didn't know.
Yeah.
But in a lot of, like in several incarnations, Zod actually believed Jor-El and backed him up.
That is true.
And we see that in Man of Steel. I'm kind of glad that there wasn't some epic battle, and he has to like punch his way out through a pond of babies that Man of Steel has. But and so anyways, I'll move past that. I love how Lara does sound like a worried housewife of the 40s. Like,
Yeah.
hey, how did your doomsday thing go, honey?
Yeah,
It's so soft spoken.
It's very timely.
Yes, and she's just so humble about it, and like, oh well,
She's very
I
supportive,
believe-
right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
well,
Like, you'll
as
get
a
him next
housewife
time,
is.
honey.
I want to meet my Laura. I mean, where's my Laura? How was your doomsday meeting, sweetie? Oh,
How
it was
was-
fine.
well,
How was
she's-
dinner on the table?
That's a good house to go home to. She's cooking up pot pies and asking, how does the end of the world go today?
Actually, it turns out terrible. The end of the world is upon us,
We're kind
and you're going blind.
It's kind of a shitty day.
I really like how she goes blind, but he's okay. Like, and she
Jor-El's
goes
fine.
blind because of black smoke or something from the planet.
From the planet.
Like,
Maybe
alright.
it was kryptonite smoke.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and it just blinded her super senses and.
It's
and all
interesting
stuff.
that people in Krypton, we're laughing at them for being so stupid, but when he gets to Earth, when Clark Kent grows up and gets to Earth, people on Earth are kind of weird too. You know? what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's true.
Earthlings are
Yeah.
not presented that great either. So I think this is just the message this 40s radio thing is trying to present, that humanity is just kind of dumb. Just kind of dumb.
Yeah. So why don't we flash forward to several years later when Kal-El
Kal-El.
lands on Earth. And the interesting thing is in this one, Kents don't exist because he arrives on Earth fully grown.
That's right.
Yes.
He steps out fully grown. We have to assume the rocket ship taught him English or humans speak Kryptonian.
It's basically the story of Jesus with a rocket ship teaching him English and how to survive on Earth, right?
I argue it's more Moses than Jesus.
I forgot that part of Jesus is coming to Earth.
Yeah.
John.
Well, you need to see
Moses.
X-Files season 4, I think it was.
yeah.
That's where I fall behind, guys. I didn't know that was canon in
Yeah.
1740.
This isn't a religious podcast.
Time travel, you know how it goes.
That's awesome.
I did think it was interesting that, like, the first thing he does when he comes out is start talking to himself about the situation he's in.
Yeah.
So he's like, he could be floating or something. So this floating guy just talking to himself. Like, call the cops.
Well, I see, to be fair, so that's actually one thing, and we're kind of going in a little bit to our power use section on this, but it's fine. So technically, he does not fly in this episode. Because there's an episode, and I want to say like 43 or 44. We are amateur experts, so feel free to send in your emails correcting me. Is when he actually flew first in the radio show. I think he had just started to fly in the comics around the time this came out, and they weren't sure if that was going to end up being a thing. Because the reason they introduced flight was because leaping was hard to animate in the animated shorts that Fleischer was doing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of wind for a non-flying Superman.
I agree. It seems to be easier to illustrate flying than leaping as well, because every time he leapt in this, it sounded like flying.
Gosh, talk about the sound effects of the 40s.
They're actually pretty good, I thought.
They
That
weren't
was
bad.
pretty spot on, and anytime we're outside, we have the we have the wind going, and when they're wrapping it up, and
Well, there's one spot in Clark Kent Reporter toward the very beginning, I believe, when he was talking with Jimmy and his dad. Not Jimmy Olsen. Don't be confused, people.
Oh man!
But where you actually heard like a bird chirp. And I was like, oh, that's a nice
good. Yeah.
slight touch to show they're
It was
outside.
Nice. It was nice. It was kind of bad that the old man and Jimmy were kind of these fucking lunatics. That just,
No, they were not lunatics. They acted completely rationally. Because think about this. You are just two normal people in the 40s, and you're getting on a train to go somewhere. All of a sudden, the brakes malfunction on the train, and you're in a runaway train, and you see a man flying through the sky, crash down on top of your train, and rather than going through the door, ripping off the roof, coming inside and grabbing you. Like, it's no mistake. It's like I loved the fact that they were like, "Who are you? What is this? Let us go." Unlike in like other origins we've seen, like in Action Comics, when he busts into someone's house and they don't say, What the fuck are you doing in my house? The guy in Action Comics just goes, "What do you want?" Like, at
What
least
do you
this guy reacted appropriately.
instead of like praying to God for some mercy, he's like, "Yeah, what do you want, Superman?"
These people at least reacted appropriately. Like, "Who are you? No, get away from us.
And
Leave us alone."
And they went like above and beyond. They gave this guy a backstory, a name, direction in life.
I don't remember his name.
oh, totally. No, I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Are you talking about like with the dad?
Yeah.
promise? Yeah.
I want an old man and a Jimmy to tell me what to do with my life. You know?
I love that he was a professor, and we'll get into superpowers later. I did mark that, how he knew he was a professor.
I will also say this. You might hear thunder and rain in the background. Do not worry. We are probably not going to die. But if this ends up being released post-mortem, hello, everybody.
Yes.
Hello and goodbye.
Elizabeth, I am so sorry that I came to this if I die tonight. But
Don't
I love
lie.
you and the
You are
kids.
not sorry.
All right, I'm not. Okay, baby, I'm not that sorry.
It was
What?
worth it. It was worth it.
There's something
It
I
was so
saw.
worth it.
There's something I saw. I don't remember what it was, but it was like when men are faced with like life-threatening situations, they start worrying about death, and they're like, "I don't want the last thing I'm thinking about to be about something like, oh, am I going to die? I want to think about something cool." So it was like 90% of men die thinking about Batman.
Well, wrong podcast.
Sorry.
Sorry, Superman. You don't even star in our dead dreams.
But so anyway, so he arrives. He saves Jimmy and his father, the professor, which like Justin just mentioned, I believe. He seems to somehow magically know he's the professor.
Well, so I will give. I give Superman a lot of credit. Now, I give him a lot of negative points for his strength has no bounds. He lands on Earth as a man dressed in this cape thing, and he's hovering over a highway, and he speaks perfect English.
Or
but
do we speak perfect Kryptonian?
And he says, that he's still a stranger. Anyhow, so Jimmy and the professor, I believe he overhears them, because when the professor and Jimmy, and actually I was kind of confused over this for when the train malfunctioned, actually. So the Irish...
the train driver.
The train driver guy.
The
conductor.
I just remember that he was Irish, and he said, "Yeah, no, here, I'm gonna go get some. I'm gonna grab a drink." Oh, okay.
Drink.
Yeah.
I thought he went to go get alcohol.
Oh, maybe he
I
did.
thought
But
it was like the 40s.
To me, it seemed like it was
happened.
water, because they specifically said it's a really hot day.
That is true. Yeah. I wonder if Earth is being pulled into the sun, because
it's hot.
that's a big parallel.
Yes.
You heard it here first on the Supes on podcast. We're doomed.
So, anyways, they get on the train, and then just next thing you know, Jimmy's so excited and probably causes accident, and the train is slowly on its way.
He's gonna blame Jimmy like that?
Well, he was just so excited, and typical, I guess, 40s kid just, well, what are we going to do now, Dad? Let me break this window. And the dad's just like the people from Krypton.
Did they really break a window?
I thought they did. Well, because Jimmy was just so adamant of, well, we got to jump out now.
Oh, maybe so.
And then, but then the dad, he comes in and is like, no, we can't do that because of X, right?
Yeah.
And that's when Superman comes to save the day.
So let's get into how Superman got his name in this. So he rescues Jimmy and his father.
Yeah.
And then they're talking about what he needs to do. And at one point he's like, well, you're going to have to use... What's your name? I don't remember. He didn't remember he was Kal-El. He did remember perfect English. He did also have a magic suit that grew with him from a baby into adulthood. However, he did not know his name. So the Jimmy, the little kid, just goes, why not Kit? Clark Kent.
He pulls this name out of his ass, and that's our Superman for like nearly 100
And
years.
he also asked, like, what can I do in order to see men at their best and men at their worst? And they suggested being a reporter, which fits perfectly with the story.
Makes sense.
However, I started thinking, how great would it have been if they had said, like, a doctor? Because everyone needs to go for medical treatment. So you'll see the best of men and the worst of men. And we could have had Clark Kent, PhD.
I think that would have probably been more believable than, yeah,
Dr.
why don't
Kent.
you go be a news reporter?
For the metropolitan planet.
This huge headlining newspaper that I know of. Whenever he lists the reasons off,
It's
I'm
not-
like, there's
it's-
like 100 professions
Yeah,
that do that.
yeah.
It's really ballsy if you think about it, because Clark Kent doesn't want to reveal his secret, and he works at a place that reveals secrets.
That's true.
Or like every
But he
single
just
day.
tells Perry multiple
That's
times
very
throughout this.
paradoxical.
Don't
Yeah.
worry about that Superman guy. It's fine. No, are you kidding?
I do like how Clark Kent, after he gets his name and he gets his guidance to life by some stranger, as we all do, he kind of tricks his way into becoming a reporter.
Does he really trick his way?
He kinda-
I was trying to come up with a word for it. He didn't blackmail him. He didn't,
So first, while we're going into this, let's say exactly what happened. So basically, Clark goes into the Daily Planet, and while he's waiting to go in for a job interview, he overhears through a phone conversation that there is a man called the Wolf sabotaging trains.
Not to cut you off, but even before the phone call came in, he was talking about how he had this sweet exclusive over the train and the wolf and everything.
I thought but no, because Perry White got the phone call about the Wolf.
I could be
before,
wrong. Maybe I misheard things.
And maybe I'm wrong too, but I could have sworn he got the phone call about the Wolf. The first phone call about the Wolf.
Yes.
Before Clark even came into the office. He was sitting outside waiting.
That's right.
And so then Clark came into the office.
Was
and
that what the guy was doing before Clark came in?
Yeah, before Clark came in, he got the phone call, and then his secretary kept coming in, and he's like, what about this man? And he's like, don't worry about it, I gotta figure out about this Wolf guy. And then, like, what about that man? He's like, fine, just send him in.
Yeah, the Wolf was a big deal before Clark, so...
Yeah, true.
So Clark kind of used that to his advantage.
Yeah,
Is
for
that fair
sure.
to say?
I do have to say, though, Perry White, are you fucking kidding me? Someone walks into your office and is talking about detailed things about a crime scene that have not been published anywhere. And you end up assuming he must be clairvoyant, or this is a quote, you're either a clairvoyant or a lucky guesser. It's like, or maybe he fucking works for the criminals. Why don't you fucking call the cops?
Maybe he's the wolf.
God. Like, when I was listening to that, I was just like, no, he fucking would obviously work for the
How
wolf.
would he not have been this?
And how did you know that the phone call that came into your office while he was there, he's like, well, if that was the wolf threatening the silver clipper, yeah, how the fuck would you know that? Because you work for the wolf.
Perry's very trusting. I will give Perry a little bit of credit, because Clark Kent was just some asshole who walked into his office saying, I want a job, and Perry was like, you don't have any experience. I won't give you a job. I'll believe everything else you say.
Yeah.
And here's $200.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, kids, in the 40s.
Get the fuck
That's
out.
still a lot of money now.
Speaking of, Justin, your speaking fee for coming on the podcast, that $200 we promised you.
Damn it. All right, kids. It has been fun.
You don't need to go to college. You just need to blackmail a newspaper.
I actually meant I'd give
Yeah.
you 200% of this episode's budget, but that's $0.
I will still take that. And one day hope.
Sucker, we would have gave you...
But yeah, John, I think I'm gonna pull the same shenanigans. I'm gonna just go interview. I'm gonna have Jeremy pull off a bank robbery. I'm gonna be like, I have an exclusive over this bank robbery. John's gonna call them and be like, yeah, there's a bank robbery in progress and everything.
This is how the system works.
If you do hear of any crimes like this that seems oddly similar, do not point the cops in our
Yes,
direction.
please do not point the cops. Okay, kids.
If you're true fans,
If you want this to keep going.
So before we move on to the next section, I just want to say I listened ahead a little bit past the second episode. The second episode ends with Clark Kent jumping out of a window and disappearing,
Yeah,
and
I know,
everyone
that's
assuming he's
Oh,
dead.
God.
this guy they just met, like, not even 10 minutes ago, jumps out of a window.
And so, in fact, in episode 4 of the radio show, it's called The Silver Clipper, Clark ends up calling, and if you want to listen to episode 4 of The Silver Clipper with us, check out episode 384, eventually.
Maybe.
Maybe. So, Clark ends up calling Perry, and the first thing he says is, Kent, I thought you were dead. And it's like, everyone just assumed he killed himself, but his body was never found.
That $200 really didn't mean a whole lot.
It's chump change to Perry White.
Yeah, Perry just gives it to anybody.
This is back in the 40s. Newspaper was the shit.
That
true.
is very true. You didn't have the internet and information that you have nowadays.
So this is going into the powers used a little bit. This could be a transition. So the area he's trying to get to is 2,000 miles away. And he decides he doesn't have time to wait. He needs to hurry. So he's kind of using super speed, super leaping. It's not really clear how long it took him to get there, so who knows how fast he moved.
He just makes it seem like it's not going to be an issue for Kal-El. I want to point out something. They're very specific when it comes to powers. I forget what it is exactly, but it's like he's like can do 3/8 of something or something.
1/8 of a mile.
Yeah, 1/8 of a mile.
Yeah, I love that.
It's
They have them calculated.
Just say
like
he's
a
really
T-Rex.
just say he's really fast. I'm not going to go out and measure this shit myself.
Yeah.
He's just supposed to be Superman. No larger than an ordinary man, and I couldn't get past that. 1940s average height was 5'6". This is a very short Superman.
Yeah.
He's a very, very small Superman. Something I found kind of funny. I looked up other titles for future shows of the Adventures of Superman. So my favorites here I have in November 1948. This is sometime after. It's a long-running show.
Mm-hmm.
It said, Murder scores a touchdown. I love that.
Yeah.
The Monkey Burglar and The Talking Cat. These are fun shows.
So I listened to a lot of these years ago. That's how I became the amateur expert I am. And I don't remember what it was about, so this is, I'm sure, very interesting to everybody. There's a show called, like, The Emerald Inca, and I just remember it being so good. And then it ended up going into and leading into an episode called, like, The Atomic Man, and I was like, I don't care about the sci-fi Atomic Man. I want to know about these ancient Incas.
Yeah. Oh, quick note, The Talking Cat, 14 parts.
Yeah.
To that episode.
So
That story.
I guess sort of moving into the
That's a Superman story?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I guess we're moving into our, like, stats or interesting numbers. Justin just let us know that, an ordinary man was 5'6" at the time. So for me, for an interesting number, though I don't remember the number for y'all, is that this was a thrice weekly running show. So it aired 3 times a week. And it was, at the time when it launched, it had a 5.9 on whatever rating they used. It wasn't the Nielsen rating. It was like Coolidge rating or something. But it was the highest rated thrice weekly show for years.
On the Cool Ranch Radio?
Cool Ranch Radio. Is that what it was on?
It was the Cool Ranch something.
Cool Ridge.
You know, not to trail off again, but now that we're talking about, I was curious how many people actually listened to this, and I figured it was 8-year-olds to like 13-year-olds, maybe some middle-aged
whole families.
Well, no, just of just like kids sitting by the radio, playing ping pong or shooting whatever kids do those days, right? Yeah, and that's kind of surprising to hear because even on episode 1, they take into account that Superman, at least something about Superman. You have some context of, well, he's super strong and he's just better than me in some way, and I kind of feel like they didn't dumb it down enough, or maybe they've dumbed it down too much in my time.
Or maybe Superman was more popular by that time than you realized.
Exactly. And so, I mean, he's,
Superman had been around for, at least 2 years?
A little less than 2 years at this point.
So who came out first? Was it Superman or Captain America?
Superman.
And then Captain America followed after that.
Yeah, pretty much. And John is the resident Super Marvel fan. You can throw me under the bus on this. I'm sure there's examples.
Yes.
But almost every Marvel hero came after a DC hero that was really similar.
Unless it's like Namor or something, which I'm not entirely sure about that.
I think Namor came after Aquaman.
That sounds
That would
true.
make sense. Yeah, I would need to fact check that.
There's no
No
way to
need.
fact-
Take my word. Everybody listening,
There's no.
email in supesonpodcast@gmail.com and let me know how wrong I am.
Whiskey Jeremy is always right.
It is interesting that a lot of things came from this radio show. This is kind of neither here nor there, but the name Grayson was used.
First appearance of Kryptonite.
First appearance of Kryptonite. The Grayson's a fairly common name, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really mean that much. But I found it
That is actually pretty interesting.
kind of
for a
fascinating.
tie-in.
And from Wikipedia, which is always right, it says it goes on to explain that many aspects associated with Superman, such as Kryptonite, as you just said, originated from the radio, as did certain characters from the Daily Planet like Perry White, Copy Boy Jimmy Olsen, so I'm assuming it's a different Jimmy, and Police Inspector Bill Henderson, who the kids love.
I'm almost positive, though, that the kid that played Jimmy in this ends up coming back and playing Jimmy Olsen. And I don't know. I would have to fact check this. So, like I said, tweet us at Supes on Podcast. Let me know how wrong I am. But
Please call out Whiskey Jeremy.
Yeah, it's Whiskey Jeremy.
And here is Justin's personal phone number.
I'm fairly certain that the actor's name was Jimmy.
That's probably
That
why,
may have been it.
yeah.
And I don't know this either, podcast world, but I want to say that Jimmy wasn't a boy when in real life. Like, I think he was an actual man.
Yeah,
like when they
probably
recorded
early
this.
20s.
Probably.
Yeah.
And that they did a pretty good job.
Another interesting thing, on March 2nd, 1945, on the radio show, Superman met Batman and Robin for the first time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I'm going to give you all a little recap. We've obviously talked about how Superman, Clark Kent, was going off to try to save the Silver Clipper.
The Clipper.
From the Wolf. So I did listen ahead. I wanted to see the resolution of the story. I had to see it through. So basically, Clark goes out there. He fights Kino and the Wolf being Kino's master, and essentially beats the shit out of them. And then he goes to the local police as Clark Kent reporter and tells them, "Hey, all this shit's gonna go down. Like, how do I know you're telling the truth?" It's like, you're the police. Just go fucking investigate. I'm giving you a tip. Like, maybe I'm lying. If so, treat me as whatever the fuck you want. But go investigate. I'm telling you, a train is going to derail, and the people behind it are located here. But, so, the cops finally go off to investigate. He calls Perry White. Perry White's thinking he's dead. He's thinking he jumped out of the building. And Clark calls him and says, "This is Kent." And he's like, "I thought you were dead, Kent." And then Kent's like, when are you going to print? He's like, right now. He's like, well, hold the presses. So this guy that Perry met for like briefly, a minute and a half, maybe 4 minutes.
Not even a cup of coffee.
They were dead.
Assumed dead. Is calling, claiming he's somewhere it's impossible for him to be because all planes are grounded due to the weather, and is saying that he's there with a big story and to hold the presses because he's going to see how everything ends. And Perry's like, well, you'd better be right, kid, and hangs up. Like
what, Barry? What are you going to do if he was wrong? What are you going to do? You gave the man $200.
No, he didn't. He didn't take it.
Oh, that's right. He didn't take the advance because
he didn't need it.
Superman.
Oh, can we talk about one thing? Let's go back to that. He goes in to interview for this job. I'm assuming he's not in his cape and shit. How the hell did he get his new clothes? I think he stole them.
I'll bet he did. Well, no. I kind of figured that the professor.
No, because he left.
Yeah.
No, he stole the professor's clothes, and the professor's riding naked on a train with Jimmy.
He didn't steal them. The professor got nude to get with Jimmy. It was a very sad story, but Clark didn't really understand molestation yet, and so he didn't do anything to stop it.
They didn't teach him that on the Krypton spaceship.
It's not weird on Krypton.
Yeah.
I like to think that all he had was his cape, so he just kind of made a red suit out of his cape, so he walked in.
But he has his cape later on.
Oh, right. Well, he has super sewing powers.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe he just quickly sews his blue and red suit into a regular blue suit.
No,
Super needle powers, like a red tie.
And this, whenever Miss Smith leaves him, he's in a closet talking to himself, and he just says, "All right, well, out this window." And does he lose all of his clothes, or does he?
I think he goes in his Clark outfit.
He goes in his Clark outfit out the window. So the first time in the episode, he was hovering over a highway. No one is that blind.
Yeah.
And then he jumps
Well,
out
it's
of
a highway in the
pretty
40s.
busy. Okay, yeah.
I mean, drugs were
It seemed to
rampant.
be like maybe it was just me. Maybe you didn't say this, but did y'all get the impression this was like in a desert?
No, I thought he was on
It wasn't
like
specified.
down I-35. You know,
I thought he was like in the middle of a desert area.
It wasn't specified, but
they do land in a field.
I did get the impression that he is kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But that wasn't said, so it's kind of confusing.
So knowing what I know of Superman and having never heard this before, I thought whenever he got out of the spaceship, he was going to meet Mom and Papa Kent,
yeah.
and they were just going to raise a fully grown man
No.
from there on out.
No.
I thought that's where that was going.
No
but
Kents. No passing motorist even to drop him off at an orphanage.
No. He just came to Earth, a man.
Yeah.
A strong sleeper.
A grown-ass man.
So for our one listener out there, I would like to let you put some tension at ease for you. Clark does stop the wolf, and he stops his henchman Kino.
Oh, man.
And he calls in the story, but we assume he calls in the story. That happens off screen or off air. But he goes back into the Daily Planet, and he's like, you know what, Kent, you got yourself a job. And then he gets a call, and we find out the wolf was just a lackey this entire time.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Tense stuff, guys. You should see Justin right now. His jaw is on the
I
ground.
am literally on the edge of my seat.
And that's how you get work.
Yeah,
In the 1940s.
So that's how I got my job. I walked in, claimed to be something I wasn't, and they gave it to me. I mean,
That is also how I got my job.
It's not too untrue how anybody gets their job, really. If you think about it.
So would you guys say that Superman, or are we allowed to?
Let's
are we
just
transitioning to?
let's
if
talk
he
about real
suits
quick
on-
the powers used and the efficiency used.
Okay,
Because we didn't talk
okay,
about that yet. We
okay.
already did our
Yeah,
by the
I don't want to get
Well,
too ahead.
we've established leaping/flight, kind of.
leaping/hovering at the very least.
Okay, so the 1/8 of a mile.
That was from the comic. They didn't say 1/8 of a mile in this.
I thought they heard that because I have that written down.
They were
Oh, maybe they
specific
did.
about
Maybe they
some
did.
things. They really were like down to like
What were they talking
the
about?
number.
1/8 of a mile, like
They were talking about the movie 8 Mile with Eminem.
they predicted.
Yeah.
Okay, so he definitely has. Let me go to episode 2 at least. Well, I know he has supersonic hearing. To
Yeah.
go back to what he
That's
That's
true.
he
true.
heard he was a professor from.
And he
the
overheard all the
Irishman.
stuff on the
Yeah,
phone.
and that's true.
So he has like hovering, leaping, flight, kind of super hearing, super speed. Obviously,
Yes,
he's
yes,
running
strength.
around.
Super speed, strength.
Super strength,
He ripped the
that's-
roof off.
And that's all he had. There's like I don't know if this is before X-ray vision or heat vision,
I don't know.
but it was just leaping, running and ripping roofs off of shit. That
Yeah.
was Superman in a nutshell.
Yeah, and did he use these efficiently? I have one example where he didn't.
I mean, I don't feel like he did it inefficiently. I feel like
Would he rip the roof off the train?
That's my thought.
What
Why
the
would he?
fuck?
He said, and he even said there was no time, so I had to rip the roof of the. What do you mean? If there's time to rip the roof off, there's time
Well,
to just rip the door off.
you know what? I have to give. I guess I have to give credit to. No, actually, now that I think about it,
Take it all back.
okay. So I was going to say that. Well, you know, he could maybe the 1940s audience wouldn't actually believe Superman could stop a moving train.
Yeah.
But then again, he can rip the roof off of
of the
one.
train.
Well,
These
to be-
Well,
things.
let's think about this though. Also, I hadn't thought about this until just now. Not talking about efficient use of power. I guess this is somewhat efficient, but why would he have tried to stop the train at all? The planet he comes from, everyone is superpowered.
In his defense, he just got there. He's been a man for like
But
an hour.
that's my whole thing.
So, yeah,
why would
how
he even
does
try
he
to
know-
stop? How does he know humans can't survive that?
Well, Jeremy, how does he know English?
Well, no.
How do we know Kryptonian?
No, Jor-El,
Well, I don't know Kryptonian.
You're speaking Kryptonian right now, man.
Oh my gosh!
No, Jor-El did say Earth was like, because I don't know if he went to the yellow sun or whatever. But
Okay, so I guess we assume he didn't go to the yellow sun because they were just millions of years evolved.
Right.
So I'm assuming, if we assume the rocket taught him, maybe he knew. All right.
Well, didn't Jor-El, as I call him, didn't he like explain how Earth was?
He did, but I was wondering
like
how
the
Clark,
powers
how
of
Clark
Earth?
knew it though.
Well, if he knew it, and we're assuming the ship taught him,
I guess, yeah.
he may have in the last,
All right, I
Yes.
acquiesce. Justin's right.
we're doing a lot of assuming here. with
Yeah,
that
but
shit.
what about this
There's no
though?
hard facts.
What about this for efficiency though? He leaps out of a window rather than just walking out of the building. He leaps out the window, possibly exposing his identity, possibly like causing
Yes.
all sorts of questions.
The one thing he asked of Jimmy and the professor, prove to me you're grateful. I love that Superman has. You have to prove you are
He's
grateful.
very petty.
True.
Yes, I'm alive. Thank you, Superman.
That is true.
Now take
Are-
me home.
So,
Or Jimmy really wants to go to the fair.
do y'all want to get into Supes on or Supes off?
Yeah, sure, and I'll go ahead.
Well, hey, before we do it,
Let's.
how about this?
Can you preface what that is?
Yeah. Let me preface what that is. So, I'm sorry. So, Justin, if you haven't listened before, and for those of you who haven't listened before, so toward the end of each episode, we go into was Supes on or was Supes off? That means essentially what that means is Superman has the horrible reputation of being boring because he's too powerful and a multitude of reasons. Did this help further Superman by proving he wasn't boring, or did this help lead to that stereotype? And so we're going to say whether Supes was on or off, but what I'd like for us to do is for everyone to hold out like a fist, and then I'm going to count to 3, and we're going to do a thumbs up for Supes on or a thumbs down for Supes off. Okay? So, think about it. Think about it.
I'm-
One,
that is a tough.
Two,
I am fisting right now.
3.
Whoa.
So
okay.
we got 2 Supes on and 1 Supes off.
Well,
Justin, tell us why you thought Supes was on.
I mean, the guy was a classic jerk, and he literally scared the crap out of Miss Smith. And I have a feeling he knew what he was doing, but I mean, how much more of a super? I mean, besides his backstory, which we really no one should ever agree with.
Right.
He did do Superman stuff. He saved the day. I mean, he saved Jimmy and Professor, and has this lead tip on a wolf, and he's doing his thing. And he became Clark Kent, even though that's like the worst way he could have got his name.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Sure, why not?
All right, so John, why did you think Supes was on?
I'm gonna say Supes is on, and I forgive a lot if it's like the very first of
Yeah.
anything,
Okay.
because they barely knew who Superman was at this time.
Yeah.
He was just some asshole from space from an old ass planet that died. I'm gonna say he was Supes on because right off the bat, all he wanted to do was save people. Now he kind of endangered people while he was saving people, but
Who did he endanger?
well, he ripped the roof off and shit of the train, and
Where did he throw that? I guess.
Yeah.
he could have thrown that and he could have destroyed a house.
Like I
killing-
said, I felt he was
So
in the
is
desert.
the train
so-
going like downhill or something?
It's picking up speed, is all we knew.
And then it crashes.
So it
So
obviously.
where-
Oh
where
no,
was
because
it going?
they said a tree fell on the tracks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
like trees do.
Yes,
I guess
obviously,
it wasn't the desert. Maybe it was a forest.
I really wonder, like, if
It's a common problem.
some conductor is listening right now, and they're like, "Yes, that is actually a very common problem."
Yes, some
Hey, so
Irish conductor.
if you're a conductor, shoot us a message at Facebook at Supes on Podcast.
Specifically, if you're an Irish conductor, like in this story,
Who likes water?
Who loves water and/or alcohol.
or drinks it like water. But I'm gonna say Supes on, yeah, because he wanted to save people. He didn't really know how, I guess you could say. But yeah, its first instinct was like, I gotta save these poor fucks because they have no powers.
Yeah. So I said Supes off for a couple of reasons. My first one, and really, I would give it neither. I would give it a thumb sideways. I should have given that as an option.
If we're doing thumb sideways, I'll give it
Yes.
Because Baby
I'll
from
jump on the
Baby from Krypton was so boring, and Superman is not in it at all. It is his origin. I understand you have to have the origin, but they could have had a quick minute snippet at the beginning of Clark Kent Reporter that summed up Baby from Krypton, because they don't go into too much shit in there. So why not just have that? But regardless of that, not having Superman, that's one reason. As that he wants to hide himself. He doesn't want. Superman is, at least from today's standards, supposed to be a symbol of hope, and he doesn't want anybody to talk about him. He routinely acts like people are insane for even talking about a Superman. He doesn't. He wants to basically do that, and then he saves people, and then expects them to help him. Like, to me, there was so much stuff that and obviously I'm comparing it by today's standards, and I shouldn't be, but to me, that wasn't Superman. That was some other character.
Well, as far as keeping Superman not boring, the first one, fucking boring, snooze fest.
Yes.
But when he was a grown ass man and he was actually doing Superman
it was
shit,
entertaining.
he was just couldn't wait just to fly and jump out a window for no fucking reason.
Entertaining enough that I listened to I listened to two more than we were going to for this episode because I was intrigued.
I mean, gosh, it's so hard to say that this was like good or held up, and it's timeless in the sense that back in the that was all that they had, and I think it's really smart for that time period.
Yeah.
And
it did start an 8-year radio show for Superman, which was very popular, and I'm sure drew in several new fans. Like, I think if we're talking about it, looking at it from like a meta perspective of was it beneficial for Superman, then yes, it would be Supes on. But I think looking at it from a character perspective, it was Supes off for me anyway.
I do feel his Clark Kent is, but I complain about this with all of our media. He's way too American right out the door.
Well, he landed in America.
And during pre-World War II time, John, it's pre-World War II.
Well,
this is back before it was called America.
This is before Pearl Harbor.
Before Pearl Harbor.
That is very.
This is resident historian Justin Schlenke talking, so you know it's accurate.
Well, I take back everything I've ever said in my life.
So we had a little bit of disagreement. Let us know what you think. Did you think, if you went back and listened to this, did you think Supes was on or Supes was off? You can let us know Facebook or Twitter at Supes on Podcast. You can go to supesonpodcast.com or email us at supeson@gmail.com. Next week, we're going to be talking about the pilot episode of Smallville.
Should be very, very fun. Very fun.
So one of the first shows, me and John, little friendship history for y'all.
This is not a history podcast, for God's sakes.
Me and John, one of the first things we sort of ever did as friends was we rewatched, or for me rewatched, for him I think watched.
I watched a rewatch, to be fair, of me like the first 4 seasons, but
we
ultimately
watched all 10 seasons of Smallville. It only took us 4 years.
4 years. We were committed in it to win it.
In it to win it. So we did that.
So when we say we're experts,
when we say we're amateur experts, emphasis on the amateur.
We did watch 10 years of television in 4 years, so I'm going to let that speak for itself.
So, Justin, I'd like to thank you for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me on here.
And everybody, please stick around for one of our famous diss tracks. What are we going to make fun of this week? Find out. Only person I can diss from this is the writer. It's obvious he had to stay up all-nighter, which is ironic since it put me to sleep. While Jor-El was talking, I was counting sheep. The exposition, poorly executed, but our fresh beats, the best undisputed. But all this hate is for the baby from Krypton. Clark Kent reporter actually got me turned on. So fuck this writer for taking an awesome origin story and turning it into just another boring Moses allegory. I've said enough. John, why don't you tell us what you thought? Because I'm out.
Gonna put the wolf on blast just like my doomed home planet. With Jimmy and the cast, we go hard like my dick, pure granite. Grown-ass man when I came to Earth. Weak-ass man all up on my turf. Take Perry White's cash and run. Damn son, yellow sun, about to have some fun. Wolf ain't having none. Faster than a bullet, so don't bring your gun. Work at the Daily Metropolitan. Oh shit, I'm going off again. Making Wolf's first name Virginia. Bend over, bitch, as I stick it in ya.